There we go. We are recording. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Johnny with Better Homes and Gardens Band Realty, your friendly neighborhood realtor. I'm here with Mike. He's a mortgage. He's with the mortgage company Hudson United. And Mike, can you introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, my name is Mike Van Mansart with Hudson United Mortgage. We are an affiliate of Rand Realty. We're basically one of their great in-house support affiliates, and I've been doing mortgages now for, wow, almost 15 years, it seems like. So I've been doing it a long time. I was in it, a crash, and rode it right up, and now we're in it today. So
Fantastic. So today, what we're really going to talk about today is really focusing towards my first-time home buyers, people who've never bought a house before, who they're renting right now, and they're going to buy a house soon. So, Mike, what would you advise? What would you recommend? Let's say someone who's never bought a house. What would be the first advice you would give them?
Well, the first thing you want to do, everyone nowadays has a monitoring of their credit app via Credit Karma or one of their credit card companies, for instance, usually has some type of credit tracker. You really want to know going in, mortgages are based on income, assets, credit for the most part. So what you want to know going in is, are my ducks in a row? Am I going to be able to qualify for this house, regardless of your income or regardless of the down payment you may have? You have to focus on, how is my credit? And with lending guidelines being what they are, they're not so much credit driven, but you want to know what your credit looks like. And you want to know if there's anything on there that's going to impact you negatively to where you might not be able to get a house. A lot of things that come up, which people don't realize are actually on their credit, are old tax liens, judgments, collections that they might not have thought were there. Those are things you want to start to know about ahead of time before you actually apply for a mortgage. So that's kind of the first step, is take a look at your credit. We can do it for you. I look at credit every single day, and I'll advise people if it's not where it needs to be, we'll take steps on how to boost it. Or maybe there's something that they can do to pay down a certain debt where we could then increase the score to get them to qualify. So that's probably the number one thing I would look at, is know where your credit is before you go to buy, because the last thing you want to do is put an offer in on a house or go looking at a house when you can't technically qualify for that.
Oh, I see, understand. So always check your credit beforehand.
Keep an eye on credit. Yep.
Yeah, I see. Always keep an eye on credit. So, all right. So just wanted to ask you, what are different loan programs are there out there, and explain them briefly.
Yeah, there's so many out there. The biggest ones are going to be FHA, which is a government insured loan, and conventional, which is just a standard loan. FHA loan has, lower credit requirements, lower down payment requirements than a standard conventional loan. But in a nutshell, for first-time home buyers, unless they're putting 20% down, most people that are first-time home buyers are doing 3.5%, or 5% down, which is allowing them to leave a little bit of money in the bank, for either a rainy day or maybe some repairs on the house. But the minimum contribution is really 3%. And then there's other programs that allow for zero down, like a VA loan or a USDA loan, depending on the area. So, but the most first-time home buyers are doing between 3 and, I say, 10% down.
Okay, so they won't have to pay that much, put that much forwards on the house, right?
Yeah, I mean, with interest rates being where they are, it makes sense to kind of leverage the banks. The mentality has always been, and I think it's just a generational thing, oh, you had to put 20% down, you had to put 20% down. That's actually been gone for, 15 years, I think. We haven't had to put 20% down, maybe even more, before I even started in this business. They're doing a better job, vetting people, and I think that's the reason why they're reducing the down payment. The banks are more comfortable. Underwriters are more comfortable. We can find out a lot of information about people without even, history, just data history on payments, etc., without them having to put 20% down, without them having to reduce our risk.
Okay, got it. And also, what's the thing? I wanted to ask you, let's say someone just got pre-approved with you. The person in the first house, what are some common things not to do as a first-time home buyer? What not to do?
A car.
Yeah.
So they're just been pre-approved with me, or they have another pre-approval?
Let's say they pre-approved with you. What would
Okay.
you recommend them not to do or just avoid it?
Don't go shopping. You know, if you're pre-approved, basically try not to spend money. You know, pay your normal bills that you would pay, but don't go out. It's not a time to start purchasing furniture or co-signing on a new debt for someone. You want to make sure that the credit profile and the income that we have on file is going to be consistent to the end. You know, the last thing I want to do is to find out that you signed on a car note for your family member that has a $400 obligation. Now we have to account for that. So the best thing to do is just continue to pay your bills, try to continue to save money, and that's really it.
I see. So that kind of stuff just throws off everything, every calculation on your mortgage, right?
Yep. Anything that you add as an obligation to your overall debts is going to impact the mortgage, whether that's a car loan or opening a new credit card or getting some furniture, whatever the case is. If it shows on credit, it's going to impact your mortgage.
I see. Okay. Really get it. And so also, how does closing costs, like, how would you deal with clients that have no clue what is associated with closing costs? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you help them out?
It's such a moving target. It's very hard to give someone a definitive answer. So what we like to do, or what I do as just a best practice, is kind of overestimate a little, because the last thing I want to do is to get you to the closing table and then have you short to close. So a general rule of thumb I think that realtors use, and I'll throw it out there every once in a while, is between 4 and 6% of the purchase price would probably be allocated towards closing costs. So that's a very rough rule of thumb. Really what I tell people is whatever your down payment is, add a full year of taxes and then some additional funds to that, you know, thousands of dollars for title, mortgage tax if it's in New York, other things, which is going to give you kind of a rough estimate. And the reason we use a year of taxes is not that we're 100% sure that a year is going to be collected. It's that we don't know exactly until the title company tells us. So anything in 60 days needs to be paid. So it just makes sense to use a full year and not have to worry about it. That way you're bringing less to the closing table and basically not coming out of pocket additional funds that you weren't aware of.
I see. So always go overestimate and just so you can really just stay safe.
Yeah,
right?
it's best to overestimate or estimate in this area, especially, you know, New York, New Jersey, this tri-state area. It happens to be one of the more expensive places to buy a house in the country. And a lot of times when you'll see people get pre-approved with an online lender, or maybe someone that's just not familiar with how things go here, they constantly miss even things as little as a mortgage tax or the prepaid taxes. So people come with a pre-approval and they think, oh, I'm only going to need $5,000 to get this house, when in truth it could be 15,000. You know, so it's best to have a second set of eyes on that stuff. And it's not that the person on the other end is just wrong; they just don't know better. They really have never done business here, so it takes having that, you know, experience in this area to know how to instruct people.
Okay, I see. So speaking about other lenders, so is it always recommended for you or to go with online like Quicken Loans or go with an actual person that's in the county, right? What would you recommend?
I think so. At the end of the day, we all pool money from the same place, right? You know, these big banks, whether it's Wells Fargo or whatever big bank out there, some online lender, at the end of the day, they're all borrowing money from somewhere. So the rates are very much similar, right? They're not going to be a percentage off from another bank. Like an online bank shouldn't beat us by a full percentage point, you know? So it's going to come close. And then, you know, I always say we'll have a meet or beat policy. Show me a loan estimate from another lender that has the interest rate that you're discussing and, you know, the terms, and then let's see if we can match it or beat it. But yeah, it's definitely best to get someone in this area that knows the people around here, that knows the attorneys, et cetera. It's just going to make the process more seamless for the consumer. It's going to create a better experience, which is always what we want when you're buying a house. Because in truth, it is a scary time. You're making the biggest purchase of your life. You want to make sure you have someone there that's acting in your best interest, you know, which is why we work with great realtors like you and great attorneys around here.
For sure. Alrighty. So I think that's pretty much all the questions that I have for any of my first-time homebuyers. I just want to thank you for coming on, taking up a couple of your minutes, a couple of your time, but thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem. It's my first Zoom interview.
Yeah, mine too.
We'll do another one on Friday, actually. If you do have any other questions, feel free to jump on. It'll be on Facebook Live as well. We're going to have a guest appraiser on.
Oh, really? Nice. All
Yep.
right, so then, so that's pretty much it for today, guys. And so stay tuned for another episode of who knows when we'll do it, but we'll think about something.
We'll touch base. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
All right, bye-bye, guys.
Bye.